Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Green Effect podcast. This is episode number 43, and we've got Kristin Bignell. She is a physiotherapist and the brand new owner and founder of East Mill Physio. The young lady that I've known since she was younger has gone out on her own and now runs her own shop. Before we get into what we're going to talk to Kristin about, a couple of really quick things. Don't forget to listen in for bonus coverage of my weekly show, Mortgages and Markets, with my partner. I don't want to say in crime, but kind of is, Sam Vakili, where we talk about everything around mortgages, markets, what's going on, what do you need to know. Really important show if you want to know what's going on with all of our economy. And the other part of this is this show, because it does have to do with volleyball, will be simulcast on Ignite Volleyball Club's social media. So if you are part of Ignite Volleyball, this is Kristin, and she's definitely part of our club. She's a partner, so make sure you listen in to find out all about her. So Kristin is, like I said, I've known her since she was younger. I know her family. I know her sister. Family's been involved with volleyball for many years, and we're going to talk about why the heck she wants to run her own business. We're going to talk about her history. I love talking to athletes. We're going to talk about her history in the sport of volleyball, being a late bloomer, her experiences at a Div 1 school. She went to University of Buffalo. And then we're going to get into how COVID has impacted the world of physiotherapists. Lots of changes. We all know that. They were shut down for a while. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how she is a little bit different with her practice. Her new project called Elevate Ed. Elevated, but it's Elevate Ed. Incredible program for, in particular, young female athletes. I think it's going to be very important. I think it'll be very big once it gets rolling. And again, we're going to talk about, her dream and owning a place and what it's like to actually be the owner as opposed to an employee. So lots of cool things in this episode. And without further ado, here we go with Kristin.
Welcome to the Green Effect Podcast. Finance, life, business, and everything in between. And now, your host, Stephen Green.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Green Effect Podcast. Today, we have an incredible guest. I'm really excited about this because I've known her and her family for years. We have Kristin Bignell, who is a physiotherapist and a brand new founder. Now you've got founder in your title of East Mill Physio. Kristin, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. And I noticed we were commenting before the show started. You're actually in your new physio room, right?
Yeah.
Totally cool. So you have much better decorating than I do. As you can see, I'm in my basement and I've got books and everything in here. So your space looks a lot cooler. So, yep. So listen, I love having athletes on, and we're going to talk about a little bit of your background shortly, but I love having athletes on. And of course, people who listen to the show know I coach competitive volleyball. Okay. I've been in sports for a couple of decades at least now. That's a sign you're really getting old. But, I've been into it for so long, and I just love talking to athletes who've been through the journey the whole bit. So, do you find that? Do you notice maybe a difference between people who have been very competitive, high-level athletes to maybe people that haven't? Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, I think I find, especially in work, that I work really well with people that have experienced competitive athletics, because I think a lot of the characteristics, or the probably characteristics as well as the lessons that you learn through sport, make for someone that is really easy to work with and has similar values. So I do.
Yeah, and they kind of get it, right? Like the sacrifice and all those other kind of key things, right?
Yeah.
So cool.
Mm-hmm.
So give us your background, because like I said, I've known you, I've known your sister, I've known your mom and dad for years, obviously through volleyball, like back in the day, we can say that now. But tell me a little bit about your background, because it's been you were what we would refer to probably as a late bloomer in the sport of volleyball, right? And now you're a business owner. So give me the lowdown. What's your journey been?
Oh, do you want me to go way back to like volleyball?
Let's go back to volleyball because it's kind of a cool story, right?
Yeah. So I guess I would probably start the story usually back in grade 9 when a friend convinced me to try out for the volleyball team, which I hadn't even been planning on trying out for because I had been cut in grade 8. So I went out and tried out for the high school volleyball team, and there were so many girls that were trying out. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to make the team. And I was not good at volleyball. Tried out for the team. I made it. Played for a couple of years and then decided to go to summer camp to try and get better. I think that was between grade 10 and 11. And my coach at summer camp thought that I should play club volleyball. And so talked to my parents. She convinced my parents that I should play club. So I went and tried out for club. And then I played 2 years at club. I went on to play 4
Now, small
years.
detail. I got to interrupt you for a sec. Small detail. How tall are you?
Oh, I'm 6'3". Yes, I am tall.
Okay, so small part to the story here, right? They probably had the 6'3" kid come into camp and like, I know what I would be like as a coach. Like, holy cow, sign that girl up.
Yeah. So I had that going for me, which is great.
Yes.
And then I went on to play 4 years of Division I volleyball at the University of Buffalo. And while I was there, I did my degree in exercise science. And I worked for a couple of years at a physio clinic in Kitchener as a physio assistant, kinesiologist type sort of role. And then I went on and did my master's in physical therapy at the University of Toronto. I worked for a year at kind of your traditional physiotherapy clinic. And then for the past three years, I was at a clinic in Guelph, doing a bit of a different type of, or just a different approach to physiotherapy, let's say.
And what was that? What was the difference in the approach?
So it was longer appointment times and more of a holistic approach to treatment rather than just that quick in and out, just focusing primarily on what they were coming in complaining of rather than taking an overall view of them as a person and the multiple different contributors to their either pain problem or movement problem. And then also taking more of a proactive sort of approach. The way that we do an assessment allows us to highlight areas of dysfunction even before someone starts to feel like a pain issue. And then we can treat that in real time using neurofunctional acupuncture to create change, which is really important for a lot of high performing athletes.
So is that something you're seeing a lot in the industry now? Because I know anytime I've done physio, and this is not a knock at anyone I've done physio with, but it is truly treating the reason why you're there, and that's it. And again, I think that's probably an accepted way of doing it. But you're saying now that there's more of that push, not even push, but more of a need to treat going forward as well.
Yeah, and I think it's super important. I don't think it's not common though. It's not common to do it that way. And this was unique to the clinic that I was at. Like that model of care was unique to that clinic, as some other practitioners as well do something similar. But yeah, it's still not, it's not traditional for sure to do it that way. But it is more effective in terms of long-term outcome for people.
Yeah, and I would say for elite athletes, let's call them high performing athletes, right? Youth, or even if you're an adult, that sort of thing. I mean, if you're constantly playing and your body's taking a pounding that way, I would say that's pretty critical really to the process, right? And I think you want to be a well-rounded, healthy athlete person, whatever you happen to be treating, right?
Yeah, and I think it is common in like professional sports to have more of that proactive maintenance type care. But I think it is becoming more accepted in just the general population. But if you think even someone who has a very like physical job could, they're constantly stressing their system, right? And so all we're doing is just providing an extra way of supporting that and improving function.
Yeah, as a homeowner with a garden and
Yeah.
grass I need to cut, I can appreciate what you're
Yeah.
saying totally. And being the tender age of over 40 now, and I totally get. We're not just talking about athletes; we're talking about the weekend warriors, we'll say.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so one thing that's really interesting is, you were kind of late to start as an elite athlete. Okay.
Mhm.
And, I remember, I think I actually got to coach you a couple of times when your club coaches were away.
Yeah.
And listen, I know you're 6'3", and that's one thing, but you can be 6'3" and just not a very good athlete. But you're 6'3", and like, seriously, you're very, very athletic, and you're not a tough kid to coach at all. You are, and I'll say this, I know you're very humble. You are a very gifted athlete that way. And, you know, you being a late bloomer into the sport, because we start the kids now at 4 years old, for crying out loud. What was it like coming into a sport so late in the game? 2 or 3 years of club volleyball, maybe I think two, and then off to a major Division One school to play at a high level. What was that like? That transition, that whirlwind?
Um, it was very challenging because I always felt like I was always behind everyone and trying to catch up, and I didn't have the as strong of a foundation in terms of skill set as most of the other people that I was playing with. But I also think that that was, in a way, probably helpful. It depends. Like, it depends on who you had coaching you at those younger ages. But in a way, it was helpful because I didn't have anything. I didn't have any idea in my head as to how I was supposed to do something. So if someone told me to change something, it was very easy to switch it up. But it was a constant. It was a constant battle to try and catch up to people. But then on the other end, like, it probably was good physically, because I did end up with issues when I was playing in Buffalo injury wise. And so I don't know if I had been playing earlier, if maybe I wouldn't have made it that far, or if that was a function of not having played as much growing up and then increasing volume of training so to such a big extent.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, to your point, these kids, and listen, when you went to Buffalo, you would have been up with American kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where at that time in the Canadian system, we didn't usually start playing volleyball till 11, 12 years old, right? Whereas the Americans have always been in that world where they started 4, 5, 6 years old, so they've been used to that sort of thing. But it's an interesting perspective with you, where you did start late, right? It's a different challenge completely. But it's interesting when you say you were almost like you were new to the whole thing. So if someone said something to do it this way, you didn't have to break any habits. You didn't have any, right? It was something where it was still new to you. So, and did you enjoy, because I hear mixed things. Did you enjoy the experience of being at a major Div 1 school in the US?
I did. Like, I'm very grateful for that experience. I really enjoyed my first year. And then I think because of injury and some other things while I was there, there were parts that I didn't love as much, but overall, I'm very grateful for that experience. And just the people that I got to meet and play with there. It's a very different experience to be an athlete at a Division 1 school. It's like almost like you feel like a celebrity there to
Mm-hmm.
people. It's weird. It's very strange. And it's super intense. Like, they hold standards as an athlete there, and the demands are extreme. But I think I really liked that challenge, and I liked that the expectations were very clearly defined, so I knew what I needed to do to either play or to be successful there. So I did like that part, but it's also exhausting. So it's
like, it's a business, right? It's a business.
Yeah, and I can appreciate both the good and the bad of it. So yeah.
It is different. It is different. And I think we have to understand that they are paying your tuition / salary. And I know you aren't paid athletes. However, theoretically you could say, well, they're kind of paying me money to play here, right? So yeah, and the celebrity thing is totally there. I mean, you're up on social media, you're on the website, you're playing in front of people. So yeah, it's a different world.
Like signing autographs at the end, and you have like all these like kids like like lining up to get, and I was like, what, like from a 17-year-old signing my signature.
And I'm sure you, and I'm pretty accurate, you tell me if I'm wrong, but you're an introvert. You're more of an introvert, right? So I can't, that's probably part of the challenge too, right? Where you are more of a, you're kind of you're a quiet, I say kid, I know you're an adult, but you'll always be a kid to me because I remember you when you were a kid, but you're a quiet kid, right? So that's going to be a challenge as well, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. It was fun though, some of that stuff. And then they would just like all the stuff they would give you, all the clothing, and you just walk into the locker room and you have this like package of all this like brand new clothing. It was just wild.
Yeah. You guys were a Nike school, correct?
It was through, so we had Nike and some Under Armour.
Okay.
It was, yeah, I'm not sure what it was through, but they had a couple different things.
Awesome.
Mostly Nike though.
Awesome. So, okay. So let's talk about and I hate to always talk about this, but the reality of it is with this whole COVID pandemic, we're making history. Okay. I tell my clients, I tell people I know, there's no book on this. We don't know how to handle this. It's all new. And so as much as I hate talking about it, I think it's become very fascinating with certain, aspects of the world. So you're a physiotherapist, you're working in a clinic. Obviously there's probably, commercial space that your company is renting the whole bit. What has happened in not only the physio world, but from a business perspective for health practitioners? Like, how has COVID kind of impacted your world? What's gone on?
So for us, the clinic that I was at was subleasing from a big gym. And so when that rent, I don't know the details, but that rent is not cheap to sublease. And so it just wasn't financially feasible to remain at that location, knowing that it was going to be who knows how long until we would be allowed to practice again.
Because you guys were shut down, right?
Yeah, so we were shut down March 18th or something like that. And then just allowed to start practicing again on June 1st. But at that time, we didn't know how long it was going to be. So that happened. So it was not, the clinic could not remain at that location. And then I guess that's kind of the main thing that happened. So we were all, as employees, we were all laid off. We didn't have work. And then it was kind of up in the air because we didn't know when we would be allowed to practice again as to what was going to happen with that clinic.
And that's a tough one, the unknown.
Yeah.
Right. You're shut down and you don't know when you're going back, right?
Or where, right? So there was also that, like, yeah, there was no set. We had this idea, or I had an idea of what I was going to be doing this year, and then that was gone, and there was no, like we didn't have a timeline, so
yeah, whatever plans you had, boom, out the window.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So let's move in now to where you are now. So when you have this much time off, and listen, let's face it, I'm a good example of this, where I took a year off coaching volleyball and I started my own volleyball club. Like, people get bored and you can start to think up really cool ideas, right? Yeah. So you've taken the time off. I mean, you haven't taken it, you had to take the time off, but what was born out of this? Like, where are you now? What are you doing with your new business? Tell me more about what's happened.
So the new, like, solo practice, that only came to be about 2 weeks before I was allowed to start working again. So that was like 2 weeks before June 1st. So that all happened really quick. And that was just, lots of things sort of kind of fed into that. And it just ended up being the best option if I wanted to continue practicing in a way that I felt was going to be best for the people that I'm working with, rather than going and working somewhere that was more of that traditional model of physiotherapy. So that piece happened. That's really quite new, and that's just happened. And I'm just kind of going with it. But what I spent a lot of time doing over my time at home was with the clinic owner. So the clinic owner where I used to work, her and I started a new business called Elevated, which is online education and consulting. And it's for female athletes and their community of like their parents, their coaches, healthcare providers. And the goal of that is to improve the way that we rehab, train, develop female athletes, because that is a problematic area that we've seen a lot of. So that was kind of our thing that kept us busy. And we're still working on it, but we're making a course for female athletes. That's the first thing we're sort of working on. And then we're going to grow from there and make a course for coaches, and then one for healthcare providers as well. Not necessarily in that order, but.
It's funny because you're so, what you just said, what you just said, and you're such a humble kid. And I'm sorry, I'm still calling you a kid because, again, that's what I've known you as. You're such a humble kid, but I think the two things you've done, I think, are huge. Okay. And I'm going to get excited for you on this. So when you started your clinic, I think one thing you said there, and listen, this is how Ignite Volleyball was born as well. You found a different / better way of doing something, and you wanted to bring that to people. So you said that you started your clinic because you wanted to keep going with that holistic approach. And I think that's really, really important for people to know, because I know for our club, we're aligned with you as well, right? Because we love you. We know you're incredibly intelligent and you know your stuff. But I think that's really important. And I think when you start a new business, there always has to be kind of that question, well, how am I different? Right. And I think that really will set you apart, because I think you got to grow. You have to, people look for, medical practitioners who are there for them and understand it. So I think for your business, that's huge. That's absolutely huge for you. Right. And I think on the Elevate Ed side too, I've been kind of watching that grow. I think that's another big thing for you, because I think everything's moving online now, and I think if you can get some great information to young female athletes, females in general, I mean, they don't have to be athletes necessarily, and even the parents, because I think that's also important too. These are huge things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was good because that was something that Michaela and I had been talking about, and that is one positive thing, was that we had then time to start working on that piece.
Yeah.
The elevator.
And what is the need? So with the online courses you're doing, what is the need that is truly there? Because I see female athletes all the time when I'm coaching them and stuff like that. But what is really the need that you've identified with that online program?
So I think just from personal experience in high level athletics, just seeing how a lot of the principles that are applied to training and even rehab are more so tailored towards males, and then just sort of like those principles are used on females when female athletes are very different. So there are like a couple of key things. So like that we talk about are just respecting the influence of like hormones is a big one. And then also changing body shape, pelvis and core is another huge one that contributes to different training errors and rehab issues and injury risk. So just, I think having gone through then physio and my own injuries and then reflecting back on how things were handled as an athlete is one sort of aspect. And then also I see a lot of young female athletes, and there's different themes that come up time and time again. And I don't see as like, there aren't as many injuries or of those like overuse or like insidious onset injuries. You don't see them as often in like younger males. This is for females throughout the lifespan. But I think just seeing how the things that are said to female athletes and the advice and recommendations that are given to them is not necessarily the best information that could be. And so it's just, sharing, realizing that like what we know kind of seems, because we've learned a lot about the subject, seems kind of obvious, but then seeing that people don't know this information, and so making sure, or just finding a way to get that out to people, because I think it would save a lot of female athletes from having injuries or having to stop their sport because of injury, and just improving their overall health and well-being.
Yeah, and I think so before COVID broke out, as part of Ignite Volleyball, we were running clinics for coaches, and you know, you were there for the one, and I was teaching just something simple, you know, forearm pass. And I know that you, after the clinic, you had come to me and you said, no, for a female athlete, and listen, I haven't touched a volleyball in like 6 months now, but I know that I'd rather come back to you for a refresher course. But you said, I know on the forearm pass, you have to do this instead of this because it hurts this. And I was like, I had no idea, but you know what? That's important because listen, I'm a guy. I just don't understand enough about the physical makeup of a female to know that the sport that we've been coaching how to teach a forearm pass for 30 years is not correct anymore, and it is hurting the athlete. So I think that's really, really critical. And if you can do that education piece, especially to your point, to male coaches, right, who just don't get it because we're not females, I think that's key. I think volleyball is so big. You know, all sports are big for females, you know, and I think it's critical that education happens. So yeah, kudos to you guys, man. I think you've hit on something that's very, very important for our young female athletes. So,
and they're more like young female athletes are more likely to drop out of sport. Like the statistics show that they're a lot more likely to drop out of sport. And so there are lots of reasons for that, but just trying to do something and provide information that can help support them so that they can be active throughout their lifespan. Because if they drop out of sport at a young age, they're very unlikely to continue participating in physical activity, and then that has its fallout as well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, and we're going to go down, when I say that, make this comment, we're going down the COVID road, we're going down amateur sport road. I think, I know for me, and clearly for you, we had, I'm going to call it a good enough experience that we've stayed in the sport. Okay. I had coaches that instilled, you know, the insanity of even wanting to coach youth sports, right? Or, you know, God forbid, start a club. And I think you've had that because I know you still play, right? I know, obviously you're trying to give back in this way. So you and I, unfortunately, are the minority where we are giving back for the reason that we love it, right? And listen, Canadian athletics, we're not in it for the money. It just doesn't pay any bills, but it is because we want to give back. We do enjoy it. So if there's the right education for a young athlete to make sure they do have an incredible experience, you know, I think that's key. That's very, very important. So. So, okay, so obviously COVID is impacted. Now, tell me a little bit about, and listen, you went from an employee to realizing the dream of owning your business. How has this transition gone for you?
Well, I think it was like, I was originally, I was an independent contractor to an employee. And then now I'm doing this. I always thought that I would be working with other people, and I liked who I was working with when I was at the other clinic. I feel like it's something that kind of just made the most sense and happened rather than like a dream that I just did. I'm just taking advantage of it. And there are lots of things that I do that I am enjoying about it. What was your question again? I got caught up. You said that.
It was obviously such a good question. It made you laugh because it was so. How have you enjoyed going from an employee to being a business owner? I'm going through that now too with volleyball, right? I've gone from a coach in a club under someone else's guidelines. And anyone who knows me knows I have a hard time following instruction and doing what other people tell me. I've had that issue since I was a kid. So now that I'm running my own club, it's like, okay, I get to make all the decisions. I can make it up if I want, right? It has its challenges, but how have you enjoyed going from an employee to running your own shop?
Yeah. So because I had been, I think that was an important piece, that I had been an independent contractor and then to an employee, and I didn't like that switch. So I didn't like being an employee. I don't know, something about control, having other people having control over me doesn't sit well, I think,
Yeah.
which is strange because as an athlete, like, you're completely listening to what your coach tells you to do, but
Yes.
I enjoyed that. So I knew that I didn't, like, I don't really, being an employee doesn't really, I think, sit well with me unless I'm just, really, if I was only concerned about just going in and it being like a source of income and then leaving, but that's not really for me. So I like to be able to do what I want when I want to do it, have full control over my schedule, making my room the way that I want it to look.
Yeah.
And then I do actually really enjoy I think the little things, the little maintenance sort of things or admin type things that I think most people don't like that might not like in running a business. I do like having that to kind of fill my time, because I do like always having something productive to do, but there is a limit to how much I can treat and do a good job. And so I make sure not to go over that, but then I do want things to be able to do. So I like that there are sort of, operational things to work on that still feel meaningful and productive, but aren't necessarily direct client time.
Yeah. And it's funny because have you ever done that DISC profile, DISC?
No.
Okay. So I'll have to send it to you. So a DISC profile basically analyzes your personality type and lets you know, a bunch of questions, and it determines, where your strengths are, where you have no value at all. Okay. So make sure you do that, because I know for me, and listen, I've got my job where I'm pretty much self-employed, and then I've got, running my own club now because I don't like people telling me what to do and stuff like that. And, I know my profile, and I'm the kind of guy, I hate the admin. I'm good at it, but I hate it. So I get someone else to do the admin for me. You might get to that point where it's like, you got so much stuff going on and decisions to be made, and it's like, all right, I need someone else to do this. So it's funny when I hear you say that, because I can almost picture or think about what your personality type is based on that whole DISC profile. But I'll have to send it to you. It's totally awesome. And I think anyone coming into our volleyball club, I've actually asked them to do it, because I think as a manager, an owner, or whatever, you got to know what makes your people tick.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm learning that. And if you want to have a really fun time, have a couple of glasses of wine and you and your husband do it.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I could never work with my wife. I love her to death. Just got past her 10-year anniversary. I could never work with that lady. She's a sweetheart and I love her to death, but never. Our DISC profiles, I think it basically said, if we ever worked together, like the world would explode. So I'll have to send it to you. And I'll send you mine too, so you know how to talk to me properly.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's fun. It's the fun part about being a business owner, right? You make up the rules as you go along. So you'll see as you get through it. So, here's a question for you. And I know you spent this past season coaching with another volleyball club, a local club there in Guelph. And I know you had coached with me before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I know you've been around the sport, obviously as a coach, right? It's not your first experience this past year. How do you see, and my question is two parts. I'll ask the first part. How do you see COVID, pandemic, how do you see the liability of the side of that sport, or the side of that pandemic, changing how we coach and how we manage that part? How do you see the liability, or maybe the impact is a better word? how do you see it changing our sport? Like, you see sometimes that maybe we won't be able to do team stuff. Do we only do individual? Does our insurance go up? Like, how do you think our sport will change? And, I think we have a major US tournament going on in Florida of all places right now. And I can't believe teams have actually showed up to it, but that's going on. And there's masks and there's chairs are 2 feet apart or whatever it is in the US. Like, it's kind of crazy, right? Do you see our sport changing considerably because of this?
Yeah, I think it's hard because it's hard to think about that because then it feels like that takes away so much from the fun of it. And that I feel like people are itching to get back. And so there will be some sort of, I think it will look strange, whatever it ends up being. I think I would imagine, I don't know, it's kind of hard because I would just be waiting to see what the organization or the OVA would say is recommended, and then I think people will just end up following that. But it's not going to be normal. They're going to make some sort of attempt to follow the recommendations for distancing and sanitizing. So I don't know if it's just if it's more like partner drills and you stay with your same partner and you're sanitizing. Coaches are not allowed to go near players, or coaches have to wear a mask. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it will look like, but hopefully it's not for long.
Yeah. Not handing out snacks at the end of the practice, handing out bottles of sanitizer, right? So
Yeah.
and I think I don't think a lot of people know. So let me now flip to the second part of the question. As a business owner, mm-hmm. Physiotherapist, which obviously as a physiotherapist, you are literally hands on with your clients.
Yeah.
How has that changed now your world? How is there a liability issue? I know when I go to the dentist, man, I think I'm being sent to the moon because I got to fill out paperwork and I got to wear a mask and they walk in like they're on the moon. They got their spacesuits on. So, and by the way, not because of my teeth, but because of what they've been told to do. I should make sure I say that. How is physio changing being in such a hands-on industry?
So our college gave us pretty good guidelines as to what to do. So we have to wear a mask. Our client wears a mask. They know that. They get sent to a survey 4 hours ahead of their appointment. It's just the regular COVID screen. And then we do that again verbally once they're in the clinic. I go and meet my clients so that they don't have to touch any doorknobs, and I walk them out again at the end. We always sanitized a lot, but just extra sanitizing, extra cleaning, disinfecting. So the walls, the doors, the handles. So it takes a lot longer to clean because you're doing extra disinfecting.
We have the cleanest offices in the world right now.
So it takes, though, I have to have longer. I'm giving myself half an hour between clients right now so that I have time to clean everything. And then just in terms of liability, I have liability insurance, and when I asked them how COVID affects things, they said just make sure you're adhering to what your professional college or whatever they're regulating. So just trying to follow. But yeah, we're in close proximity, but both of us are wearing masks, and people have been good about
They're
it.
pretty understanding about it. People aren't kind of fighting it and stuff.
No, yeah, people aren't fighting it. People seem relaxed. I thought it might feel very different and that people would be kind of hesitant about coming, but it feels very normal, other than we're both wearing masks, I would say.
Yeah.
Cleaning. Yeah. So much cleaning.
So here's a science question for you, because I know you've got that background, and I'm totally digressing here. There's been talk about players, and we'll talk about volleyball, players having to wear masks when they play. Obviously, we've heard 50 different sides to the story, but what's the science behind that? Is that even safe? Unless you're not sweating, That's going to be really uncomfortable. No, like, what's the science? Does that even work?
Uh, I don't know if I have a good scientific. I know from.
Yes, you do. I know you know this stuff.
I could
Come
like
on.
make up stuff, or I could like extrapolate from things that I know potentially. I think so. The main thing, my main concern would be that that's a because your demands for oxygen are so much more when you're exercising, that it is more difficult to breathe through the mask. And then we know that the way you breathe, like your diaphragm, so one of your main breathing muscles, is a main part of your core. And so if we're changing the demands on that system that's already being taxed because you're exercising, I would wonder how that's going to have an impact on other parts of the core, like pelvic floor, just core in general. I don't know about, like, in terms of oxygen exchange and how that's affected. I think it's not significant if you're just doing everyday activities, but I would be concerned about that when you're exercising.
Yeah, it's a tough debate, right? It's a very tough debate.
And if you're sweating too and it's getting wet, that's just like a breeding ground for bacteria. So like that can cause, I would think, other issues that maybe don't outweigh the benefits of wearing a mask during exercise.
Yeah. If anyone's ever smelt a pair of knee pads after a month of usage,
yeah,
they will understand it's a breeding ground for a lot of other stuff.
But I can understand wearing them for general, if you're in close proximity with people, like that makes sense, because you're not getting stuff on people. But with exercise, I would be unsure as to whether or not, I would be skeptical that the benefits outweigh the risks of wearing a mask while playing volleyball or while participating in physical activity.
And that's a debate right now, right? I think that's at the core of the debate now with all sports, really, right? Because there is a pent up demand. People want to get back. Like, let's just get normal again, kinda, right? And I'm with you. I'm with you on this, Kristin. I think, day to day, if you're not kind of huffing and puffing, then the mask is fine. But I don't know what it's going to look like, a team of volleyball players, or any sport for that matter, like gymnastics, like that's not going to be good, man. Or even getting caught up in equipment, or, I don't know. There's just so many risks involved. I don't know the answer. I don't think anybody knows the answer to this yet. I think quietly people are hoping for a vaccine at this point, and I don't know.
That's what I think. I was like, I think people need to be patient, because we've seen how quickly things can escalate. So I feel like people need to be patient and not expect to be going back to the way things were super quick, but maybe there are safe ways to do some, like I was saying, like for volleyball, like partner drills where you're maintaining physical distance, not touching your face, sanitizing, but you're kind of with the same partner, that sort of stuff.
My background's Italian, so all I know is to like talk with my hands, and like my hands, you can't see it on camera, but they're going a mile a minute down here, right? And it's a tough one, right? And I thought about this as a volleyball coach, and again, I don't know if I'm just getting old or whatever, but I don't even know if I want to go back to coach a club team if I've got risk, if I've got to sanitize every 2 minutes, if I can't do certain things. I mean, there's one thing with the game changing and evolving with the game changes. There's another thing to completely changing the game, and all of a sudden it's not even real volleyball anymore, right? Yeah. So it's a debate in my head I've had. And of course, I know for Ontario volleyball, the schedule's just been delayed till January, right? Period. There's just no volleyball going on. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. My gut feel, though, honestly, Kristin, I don't think we're going to see club volleyball till minimum fall 2021. Mm-hmm. Nothing to base it on other than my gut. I can't imagine we are 3 months away from starting tryouts and practices. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
And I think our American friends, and I'm sure some of them are listening to this podcast, but it's not good. It's not good down there. It's not
I
good.
think it's not, yeah, I think it's not worth the risk. And if there are other ways, I think there are multiple, like there are many different creative ways that you could still keep the team together. Cause I know that's also, it's hard on kids to not be able to participate in the sport that they want to do. I think there are creative ways to do that for now that don't look like, I don't think we should be trying to make it look like normal right now, like normal volleyball, but I still think it's important to do something or find a safe way to do things.
Well, and that's where it's tough too, because listen, we've got the generation of athletes or kids right now that are glued to their bloody phones, and you want to find them something to do. Well, now they cannot do anything of what they're used to, and so it's almost like finding what can we do to stay active, or to keep our kids active, right? So I've seen dance studios. They do online stuff. Well, that's an individual thing, I guess. If you're not doing cheerleading, by no means am I a dance expert at this, but I see nieces and nephews kind of doing stuff like that. So, well, volleyball, it's tough, or football, or whatever sport that happens to be a team sport. It's just, you can't really do that so much. So, I don't know. More to come on this. Definitely more to come. So, Kristin, thank you so much. It's been awesome having you. You are, I've seen you kind of grow up into, from a very, well, you're still quiet, but a very quiet, young, incredible athlete into now a business owner. Whether you like it or not, it's probably your dream somewhere deep down, right? But how, and I should also say this, a personal plug for you here. Always with our volleyball club, we wanted to align ourselves with the right partners for our athletes, and their families if they need it. And I know you were my only call for a physio, because you've been there, you've done that, and I think you understand what it's like to be an athlete, and I know I wanted you aligned with our club without a doubt, because I think that's important for our athletes to have that. So I know we really believe strongly in you and your understanding and just what right? So so personal plug for you, and shameless plug time now. So how can people reach you? Give me your website. Give me your Elevated. Give me that information. Where are you located? How can people find you?
So I am at East Mill Physio, which is in Elora, right across from the quarry. And my website is eastmillphysio.ca, and I also have my contact information on there. And then our Elevated is elevate-ed.com, and Elevate is spelled with 2 L's. And we also have our contact information on there. We have for both of those, so for East Mill Physio and Elevated, we're on Instagram, and I try and put out, I don't know, just fun educational stuff. It's kind of like a creative outlet that's hopefully beneficial for people that are on there. But I think those are the 2 ways.
Yeah, and your social media is great. I follow you for it, and you're always putting up kind of cool little exercises or this or that. Like there's some pretty cool content there. So yeah, if you're listening, definitely take a gander at it. Follow Kristin on Instagram. Are you on Facebook?
Yeah, my Instagram, I didn't say, is actually kristinbignell.pt.
Good. And I'm going to put the spelling of your name, because for people who don't know, 1 year when I had I think I had 3 teams that year. Holy cow. In one gym. I was kind of crazy, but I had a Kristin, a Kirsten, and another one. It was like 3 different spellings. And I swear, like, I think I'm a pretty smart guy, but I couldn't get the spellings right. I got them mixed up. I was calling you guys wrong names. And then I remember every time I said it wrong, you guys were so awesome. You're like, it's Kirsten. It's Kristin. I'm like, you know what I mean? So I remember that 1 year he had 3 different variations of it. I'm like, oh my God, this is not going to go well. And it didn't, but that's okay. So, all right. Again, Kristin, thank you so much. Awesome having you. I wish you absolutely all the success. Of course, we'll be working together. And I know you're going to do well, because you're awesome at what you do. And yeah, wishing you all the success. Okay.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. So folks, thanks so much for listening. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. And there you have it, episode number 43 with Kristin. Great, again, I'm going to say it again, great kid. If you have a chance to go see her at her clinic, definitely go. Really, really smart, knows her stuff. And again, another reminder, weekly show, Mortgages and Markets, on all of our social media. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Green Effect Podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Google Play so you catch the next episode. And don't forget to leave a review. Much appreciated.